Roberto Benedicto, also known as Bobby, was the man who established a massive business empire with the full support of his colleague, then President Ferdinand Marcos, monopolizing both the sugar industry and, most importantly, the media industry. As he took over ABS-CBN along with other stations, he made his own channel too, now one of the most forgotten Philippine TV channels, the Manao Broadcasting Corporation, or BBC-2. Born on April 17, 1917, he studied at the University of the Philippines College of Law and became future President Ferdinand Marcos' classmate and friend. On June 29, 1960, he established the Canlaon broadcasting system and started building his business empire, investing in the sugar industry in his own province, Negros Occidental, and Traders Commercial Bank, which got renamed Traders Royal Bank. He also owned the newspaper, the Philippine Daily Express. His business empire soon grew when he got the full support of now President Ferdinand Marcos, who won the 1965 elections. The media is a powerful political force. This can be supported by the Philippines' largest broadcasting network, ABS-CBN, which created pro-Marcos TV spots and political satires, along with extensive coverage of the 1965 elections. Seeing the potential of a powerful and massive force like the media, Benedicto and Marcos created a media holding company named Far East Managers and Investors, or FEMI in short. Though it really stood for Ferdinand Edrelin Marcos Incorporated, key operations were handled by Salvador Baditan, Felipe Jun Medina, and Benedicto's daughter, Kitchie Benedicto, all Benedicto followers and associates. The names of Benedicto and Marcos didn't even appear on the company's incorporation papers. Radio Philippines Network, owned by James Lindenberg and Jose de Venecia, was soon sold to Benedicto and integrated into KBS. Benedicto was also a good friend to the Lopez family, which owned ABS-CBN. Henry Lopez supported Benedicto by selling the old ABS-CBN studio along Rojas Boulevard in Pasay City for $11 million and by giving him Channel 9, which resulted in ABS-CBN shifting to both the unused Channel 2 and 4 frequencies. Along with that, the Lopez, CBN, Chronicle, Lopez Annex buildings, and other assets were sold to FEMI for 7.3 million pesos. ABS-CBN also trained KBS personnel. On November 14, 1969, ABS-CBN left Channels 3 and 9 and moved to Channels 2 and 4. KBS Channel 9 then started broadcasting. Henry Lopez soon regretted the entire affair, as years later, Benedicto himself would take over ABS-CBN. ABS-CBN was shut down on September 23, 1972, with a declaration of martial law. Henry Lopez was soon arrested based on false accusations of attempts to assassinate Ferdinand Marcos. Marcos soon began to take over ABS-CBN away from the Lopez family. However, an outright seizure, especially of an internationally known broadcasting network that owed millions to foreign banks, would stain Marcos' reputation, and he needed to devise a legal cover. 2 months later, in November 1972, Henry Lopez had already offered Secretary Juan Ponce Enrile to sell ABS-CBN to the government. Enrile forwarded the message to Marcos, who directed Cesar Zalamea, president of PhilAm Life Insurance, to handle the appraisal of ABS assets and liabilities. Zalamea submitted his recommendation in February 1973. However, Marcos did not accept Zalamea's recommendation. Marcos also needs to deal with internal competition between his cronies, namely Roberto Benedicto and Cocoy Romualdez, both wanting ABS-CBN for themselves. Romualdez, meanwhile, was willing to pay some amount for the network. He proposed the reopening of ABS-CBN under a cooperative plan made up of ABS employees, radio and television personalities. With no choice, Henny and Jake agreed. Romualdez's lieutenants Cesar Zalamea and Tony Ayala started to formulate the sales agreement, requesting Citibank to carry out a physical inventory and appraisal of the ABS-CBN facilities. Citibank was chosen because of its long history with the network, appointing U.S. network CBS veteran John Litch to do the reappraisal report. The reapparitional report, called the Blue Book, was completed on May 4, 1973. Both parties agreed on the purchase program, which was the same as Zalamea's recommendation. Oscar, Henny, and Jake Lopez eventually agreed to the recommended price of 50 billion pesos. Even though their equipment was worth more than that, they sincerely cared for the 12,000 ABS-CBN employees to find work. Originally prepared to reopen on May 15, 1973, Marcos, however, changed the following amendments. Instead of a cooperative, the purchasing entity would be a private foundation. Instead of the 14% and 12% interest charges to be paid, the bank and the owners respectively for the unpaid balance of their purchase would be lowered to 12% and 10%. Due to the changes, it was moved to May 31, 1973. But despite that, the vagueness of the identity of the private foundation assumed to be Romualdez, the representatives refused to reveal his name, which led to a standstill in the negotiations. Due to this, the reopening of ABS-CBN was moved to June 15, 1973. This is where Roberto Benedicto stepped in. His KBS Channel 9 lost money due to intense ratings competition before 1972. When martial law was declared, only KBS was allowed to broadcast, ruling Philippine television. Their growth, however, was blocked by the network's obsolete equipment and small facilities. By midnight of June 6, 1973, the studios of KBS-9 on Rojas Boulevard were mysteriously destroyed by a fire, the cause of which is unknown, but it was theorized that it was deliberately set by Roberto Benedicto for his next plan. With the studios of KBS gone, the station had to temporarily go off the air. The chairman of ABS-CBN, Alfredo Pending Montelebiano, was informed by his close friend Roberto Benedicto, asking to use the ABS-CBN broadcast center for the operations of KBS while the studios were being rebuilt. Montelebiano agreed. A meeting of all the key ABS-CBN executives took place on June 8, 1973. Both Montelebiano and Jake Lopez are conflicted, as the latter talked about the agreement with Romualdez, stating that if Benedicto took over the broadcast center, all of its 1,200 employees would not be able to work. Montelebiano, however, was already committed to Benedicto, stating that there was no alternative. The government would just take over ABS-CBN by force. Jake Lopez walked out, and Oscar Lopez was forced to agree. At noon of June 8, 1973, a letter of agreement was signed by Montelebiano and the president of RPN, Jose Montalvo. The broadcast center and its TV and radio equipment were officially handed over to KBS. The payment terms and duration of the lease were left undetermined, to be settled at a future date, and this was the reason for KBS staying in the broadcast center as long as they wanted. Salvador Baritan arrived at the broadcast center the next day. The following day, June 9, 1973, is known as Lunar Day. KBS employees fought each other for their own office spaces, furniture, and equipment, as fistfights took place among them. The whole facility was pillaged, and in a week, KBS was already on air. By July 1973, it began broadcasting on both channels 2 and 4, violating the agreement of KBS not using ABS-CBN's frequencies. By August, Benedicto was broadcasting on all ABS-CBN's frequencies. Oscar Lopez desperately tried to talk to Benedicto for payment discussion with no avail, and by November 1973, Benedicto told Lopez that the sale was off and instead the Marcos government intended to seize ABS-CBN for the alleged unpaid custom duties for the TV equipment imported from 1967, and the Bureau of Customs ruled that the Lopezes owed the government 34 million pesos. Oscar never talked to Benedicto again, and Marcos found a proper legal cover for the seizure of ABS-CBN. On November 4, 1973, the Barangay Broadcasting Corporation was officially launched on Channel 2, also known as the BBC. The BBC also stood for Big Beautiful Country, a description Imelda Marcos gave to Metro Manila. Jose Marichal was commissioned to write the station's theme song. By 1975, the name was changed to Banahaw Broadcasting Corporation. The name came from the dormant volcano Mount Banahaw. The name was changed due to the announcement by Marcos stating that the terms barangay and Maharlika were going to be exclusively used for the government. The call sign DZAQ was soon changed to the WWX. Regional stations such as Channel 3 Cebu and Channel 4 Bacolod but their affiliation switched to the government-owned channel Government Television in 1978. BBC-2 was successful, especially in prime time with its coverage of Manila Industrial and Commercial Athletic Association basketball games beginning in late 1973. The network also began showing the newly made basketball league, the Philippine Basketball Association, in 1975. Other early BBC-2 shows such as Eliza with Boots Anson Roa, Nagmamahal, Amalia, and Ora Encantanda, a fantasy show. BBC also started airing imported US shows, one of which was The $6 Million Man, along with Adam 12 and SWAT. It also aired the CBS afternoon soap opera The Young and the Restless. Dennis Habelfin and Tony Mercado, formerly head of ABS-CBN subsidiary SCAN, headed its programming, while BBC itself was under Benedicto's daughter, Kitchie Benedicto. The network became number 2 in the ratings, defeating the now falling ABS-CBN. Old shows were also reborn on BBC-2, such as the classic game show like Pepe Pimentel, Cuarta o Cajon, and Tang Tarang Tang starring Pugo Inventor. BBC inaugurated its primetime news program, BBC Balita, in 1973, anchored by Lee Andres and Po Lacalanao. It is the first news program in Filipino after the declaration of martial law. It would later be given a new title, Balita Ngayon. Comedian Ariel Ureto would first star in BBC's noontime show, The 12 O'Clock High, but after moving from one station to another, he starred in his own show, Ariel Contita, and later Ariel and Company, after 6 with child superstar Nino Mulak. A variety show, Big Likes Happening, hosted by star manager Ike Lozada for upcoming teen stars, were also aired in the network, along with game shows Game the Game and Everybody Wins. Dash shows were also popular, which resulted in the airing of Odyssey 2, hosted by Bambi Fornacier. Sitcom 2+2 aired in 1982, starring Vic Soto, Dina Ponevi, and their young daughter Danica. In the 1980 children program, Kuskus Balugos derived from the 1979 Kaluskus Busmos, a show about children's fantasies, pranks, and carry newscasts. Kuskus Balugos absorbed the senior cast of Kaluskus and followed its format. Vilma Santos had her hit show, VIP. Coffee with Lee was a daily morning talk show hosted by Lee Andres and Noel Trinidad, aired in 1976 and one of the pioneers of morning shows in the Philippines. Prominent talk show host Inday Badiday has her own shows, Nothing But the Truth in 1976, and Would You Believe in 1978, before moving on to IBC13 and GMA. Weekly drama anthologies like Tina Revilla's Cristina Vilma Santos, Dalang Buhay ni Rosa Vilma, directed by Mitos Villarreal and Marshall Sansol, and Pinky De Leon's Ito Ako, Pinky directed by Sansol, were also aired on the network. Gulong ng Parat, based from a famous DZRH radio soap opera written by Rilina Flor, was a daily serialized drama aired on the network from 1977 to 1985, directed by Marshall Sansol and written by Rilina Flor's sister, Loida Virreña. One of the famous TV programs, it garnered a 63.1% audience share in a 1978 survey, and launched child star Romnix Sarnieta, which starred in 4 weekly drama anthologies: Pepe, Ang Munting Anghel, 1976, Bata, True Story, and Señor Santo Niño. Weekly anthologies like Mascara, an expose on showbiz industry, and Ilaw ng Tahanan, about the trials of a mother, were aired on the network alongside Babae in 1979 to 1980, Maria Morena in 1979 to 1980, Panata 1979 to 1980. The TV adaptation of a Spanish novel, Marcelino Panivino, Alamat o Himala, was made by Mario O'Hara in 1979, also aired on the network. Other programs were Nora Daza's Cooking It Up with Nora and Sunday Supersede, where all Filipino movies were aired. By 1976, Benedicto had fully monopolized media, most especially television. He has channels 2, 9, and 13, cornering about 85% of total airtime sales, equivalent to 102.1 million pesos. Due to this, the station moved to its new state-of-the-art headquarters in December 1979, named Broadcast City in Balara, Quezon City, alongside RPN and IBC, regained from its sales income when it stayed in the broadcast center. In 1980, the network was renamed to City 2 Television. With its original network ID, pioneered the state-of-the-art digital computer animation on Philippine TV, which was the forerunner of today's broadcast image design. It reverted back to BBC-2 in 1984. By this time, the Marcos dictatorship started to crack. By February 1986, the Philippines was at a standstill. By February 22, the EDSA People Power Revolution had begun. By the morning of February 24, while Marcos was speaking in a televised press conference, TV screens suddenly went black. At this time, MPS-4 was taken over by rebel soldiers and soon ABS-CBN veterans. After the revolution, BBC-2, alongside RPN and IBC, were sequestered, and in June, the Presidential Commission on Good Government approved the return of Channel 2 and a portion of the ABS-CBN broadcast center to the Lopezes. At this time, BBC-2 was still on the air, and transition phase started. Radio frequencies DWOK and DWWW were handed over to the Lopezes in July, and finally on August 13, 1986, after 13 years, BBC-2 finally ceased transmissions, as ABS-CBN returned a month later, ending Benedicto's massive business empire.